night. Me and Josh went to the old Stardome. Remember the old stomping ground?
For who?
Ari Shafir.
Oh, fuck
It was
yeah.
sick. It was sick, but it was so wild because the song that Ari came out to was a fucking Kanye song, dude. I cannot escape,
Really?
dude. Yeah, and he did like 20 minutes on Kanye, which was
That's fucking
really
funny.
interesting. It was a great show, but it's just kind of wild because seemingly I can't escape the Kanye verse. It
Yeah,
literally just
no,
keeps wrapping me in every direction.
you're stuck in it now.
Yep. So, all right, well, ladies and gentlemen, um, if you can tell or can't tell, there's a big void in this week's episode. So, welcome back. Your host, myself, and Christian Hicks are going to be here. We're just gonna not talk about it, right? I mean,
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it.
there was a person on the podcast last week who decided to again drop a big Kanye bomb and just walk out of the room. Like
Yep.
nothing happened. So,
And this will drive him crazier. The fact that we're not going to give some crazy little whatever. He's not here. Who cares? We're going to have a blast on this episode. So
we got an album, we got a couple movies to talk about, and we'll shoot the shit in between. So we'll get started. Christian picked the album this week. It is Unplugged by Alice in Chains. Any background you want to give, Christian, on Alice in Chains and your history?
yeah, I feel like I've just given my dad like just so much like just the most props is when it comes to this podcast, but he really is, just as far as like the inspiration of just amazing albums that I got a chance to grow up with. And this band, Alice in Chains, was one of those that it was just a staple for me growing up. I distinctly remember him like driving me to Little League baseball practice and blasting The Rooster by Alice in Chains, and each one of my family members would pick like a separate instrument to airplay like on the way to Little League practice, and we would just fucking belt out the lyrics. And it's just, man, it's been a while since I've really gone back and just listened through a whole Alice in Chains, album, especially this with the raw nature of it being this Unplugged album. And that's kind of why I picked it. The fucking raw emotion from this band is, I mean, I like get chills talking about it. I was listening to it back and forth, just like chills through every song just about. So that's kind of just my background on it, and I'm stoked to kind of dive in on it.
Oh yeah. When I think of, especially this, I can't hear The Rooster and not think of your dad. Like your dad's the original Rooster. I mean,
He's
like
the Rooster.
you can't stop him. You're never gonna stop him.
Yeah.
And like when
Never stop the Rooster.
whether it was through you or other means, like Alice in Chains, once they entered my head, they've never left. Like when I think of grunge, to me, like this is the band that resonates with me mostly. Not because they're hugely popular, not because their shows are to die for. It's just they're unapologetically themselves. They are gonna be, regardless of what culture may say, they're gonna do what they do best, and I think it speaks volumes through the ways that they play their songs. And there's country influences, there's obviously drug and darkness influencing a lot of the music too, but like when you strip them down bare bones and light some candles on stage, you get something special. I'm getting chills now. I
think
powerful.
what you're saying is cool is like from their influences, because in their regular like real recorded albums you can hear these influences, but man, do you really get just like full force all these different kinds of influences from them in this. Did I break up?
You're good now.
Oh, okay, cool. But there's something about like the Unplugged side where, like you said, it strips everything down and their influences really come to the forefront where you're like, holy shit, there's so much going on here as far as their influences go.
Yeah. Did you, before we dive real deep into it, did you watch the album? Like, did you watch the videos or did you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've been through that multiple times. I remember my dad like pulling it up where he had like, recorded it on a fucking VHS tape, and like we watch it back all the time and shit like that.
That's super cool. So before we dig deep into it, just a little background on this album. Was recorded in 1996 at the Majestic Theater in Brooklyn. I believe that's where they did a lot of the Unplugged shows there.
Hmm.
But this was their first show in about 2.5 years. So there was a hiatus before this album, likely due to Lane and his struggles with heroin and drug addiction, and just, I mean, he looks frail, on stage, but
He
it
does.
doesn't take away from the performance. I mean, he's still
It really
there, he's
doesn't.
still
No.
capturing the whole crowd, and it's timeless. So something that was interesting too was it was his idea to light the stage with candles. And from what I was reading, he actually went out and bought the candles and lit them. So I think that's kind of a cool little note to add to the special nature of this album. But
Yeah, I also think it's just such perfect time. Like, I know it was recorded on April 10th, but when it came out on like VHS on DVD, it's dropping in like October. And it's
yeah,
just, there's something about like that's when this is coming out. Like, October is very much what resonates with this album as far as just time of year. And I think that's
yeah,
just so perfect.
yeah. It feels like a séance. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a ceremony that they're throwing down, and yeah, I think they captured it perfectly. So, um, you want to go ahead and go right into your top tracks?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna preface everybody and you as well. This is gonna take a minute.
Yeah, let's do it. We got time.
So my top, obvious, it's my number one is what it is. Everything that comes after my number one, just know that it could be interchanged very easily. My number one is the Rooster. The place it holds in my heart. It was the song that really turned me on to Alice in Chains in general, and the connection that I have with my family, my dad specifically through that song. It's always going to have a spot. So that's my number one, and then I'll go through 2 and 3 and then honorable mentions, but just know like we could really flip these out.
Right.
Number two, I've got Heaven Beside You, the guitar riff that it just drops right into, and then it brings in this lighter kind of guitar riff, and it's just the man lyrically going through these songs again, and it's stuff that I know, but it's just like holy shit, like The Coldest Winter Chill, Heaven Beside You, Hell Within. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and coming from Lane's, it's haunting. It's fucking
Yeah.
haunting
Right.
listening to him sing. So that's what I have for number two. Number three, I have Nutshell. It's just such a great intro song for what they did here with the live. We chase misprinted lines. We face the path of time, and yet I fight this battle all alone. And I think, for him in his current state, the reason why this was number three for me was, like you said, he looks frail, like he's going through it, and it's just so reminiscent of what I think the battle that he really is going through. He has kind of at this point some level of support system, some level of not necessarily fame but recognition, and they're kind of getting to that place doing this MTV kind of unplugged album, and with all those things. And it's similar for a lot of artists, which is very sad that in those moments is when they most feel all alone.
Yeah.
So those are my top three, and then I've got, I mean,
The whole rest of the album is honorable.
yeah, the Wood. I mean, there's something about the end of that song that just is like a punch. If I could, would
Yeah.
you? Oh, it's just
Yeah.
so
Oh
good.
yeah.
I've got No Excuses. We'll walk down the line, leave our rain, a cold trade for warm sunshine. I love where he does these little glimpses of some positivity, kind of like on the other side of things, and I love that song. Sludge Factory. It's very to me, it reminds me of him kind of like flipping the bird at everybody, because there's that line, I think it says, now the body of one soul I adore wants to die. You'd always told me you wouldn't live past 25. I say, stay long enough to repay all those who caused you strife. Just something about that kind of, and I'm not sure if that line's even about him, but it was kind of just like even though I'm struggling, like I'm doing it almost in spite of you to be
Right.
here.
Yeah, it's like the Alice in Chains, persona is so like, we're gonna do our thing, like us or love us or hate us, right? It's we're going to be us, and we're not conforming
Yeah.
to anything.
Yeah. And if you hate us, we're going to do it because you hate us.
Exactly.
To make you hate it more. Yeah.
Right.
Down in a Hole, Frogs. I mean, those are all on there. But it's just, I had trouble finding something that I didn't like about this album. It's
Right.
fucking insanely gorgeous. So I know that was a long kind of top, but I couldn't help myself.
No, I mean, that's the thing. This whole album is a top, right? I mean, it's literally loaded all the way through. But I find it really interesting because you resonate with certain tracks, and you're going to find that I resonate with some tracks too. And it's like Alice in Chains, though it is such an organism, right? There are faces of it. You know, there's the raw sludge factory frogs like feel, and then there's the rooster, which is like just gonna slam it down, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the nutshells, you know, the acoustic ballads that are just, they just wash over you. You know, I mean, it's beautiful in every facet. Now, so I'll go 3-1. Number 3, I have Frogs. That song is so, it's so interesting because of Lane's, the way he sings in that song. You know, he sings these like falsettos where he like will go up at the end of the like. So I'll do my best Lane impersonation right now. All right, so flowers watch through wide eyes bloom.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
It's like the ends. Yeah, like the ends of the lines will just lift and then go right into another one. And I think that is like, again, that like downbeat way of performing. That's why I love grunge like music, or even heavy dub music. You know, it will lift and then drop again. So it's just kind of, this song is,
it reminds me of, so if you take poetry that is just written line for line and you read it and it is what it is, but then you have those like poetry or, you know, creative writing people who start to split or take a word off of a sentence and drop it at the first of that line. And then how you read it becomes very different. It becomes like this structured little broken and highlighting, emphasizing on like these certain words. And Frogs is definitely like, that's how I pictured it. And it's the fucking longest on the album. What is it, like 7:30? And so it's just like, I could just put this on a loop and listen to it all day.
Right, exactly. You know, and the ending is so cool. If Lane just basically getting to a talking mode of just like, never gonna fuck with me again. You know, it's just like, like, fuck yeah, that attitude is why we're here, you know?
Exactly.
So I can't skip out on Frogs. Number 2, Wood. Wood is my favorite. Like that was like the first. Wood and I Stay Away, those 2 tracks are the ones that have always resonated with me from, you know, 13 to now. Like, so those tracks are too powerful. And with I Stay Away not being on here and Wood being on here, it's so impactful. And I didn't even find this out till recently. So we did Temple of the Dog, whenever, last month maybe, which is a tribute album to Andy Wood. This song is a double entendre with Andy Wood. So like his last name is Wood. And then this track is Wood with a question mark, right? So it is their kind of swan song to him as well, which is just insane, you know? Let's see.
I didn't know that. That's fucking awesome.
Let's pull up some Wood lyrics because
Cantrell said of the song, I was thinking a lot about Andrew Wood at the time. We always had a great time. We did hang out, much like Chris Cornell and I do. There's never a serious moment or conversation. It was all fun, full of life, and it was really sad to lose him. But I always hate that people who judge the decision that others make. So it was also directed towards those people who pass those judgments on him.
There you go.
That's sick.
Right? I mean, Into the Flood again, same old trip it was back then. Yeah. So I made a big mistake, try to see it once my way. You know, I mean, it's so, I mean, that's a beautiful, that quote from Jerry, that was from Jerry, right? Or was it from Lane?
Yeah.
So Jerry Cantrell.
Yeah.
So like that line saying, you know, yes, it was directed in this way, but also it's open-ended to everyone who experiences stuff like that. I mean, that's just, I mean, prophetic, you know, I mean, it's massive.
And how he sings it too, it is. It's like it's got this fuck you tone to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, so I fucking made a big mistake. Well, like fuck you, bitch. Like
Right.
fuck.
You don't know what it's like, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's sung just like that though. It's so
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Yeah. So that's a powerful, powerful, powerful song. And number one for me is Nutshell. You know, there's the EP called Jar of Flies, which I encourage, if you like this, go listen to
Mhm.
that, because the whole album is this acoustic, like whole backside to Alice in Chains you may not have thought of when you hear of Alice in Chains, but like it's so beautiful. And to start a set like this that they know is going to be, you know, one of their like biggest deals they've ever done, you know, in the public's eye, but like to start the set with that and just kind of set the tone for what you're going to experience. I mean, Nutshell is so special to me. Um, so yeah,
Did
so
you
that's
see
my
what
number one.
the bassist was? The bassist Mike said that "Nutshell" was the number one song that made him kind of think of Lane, like out of
Really?
their whole time together. Yeah,
I love that. I love that. I mean, it really, you know, I mean, that's the thing. It really does encapsulate so much just emotion. Like Alice in Chains finds a way to nail all these different emotions in so many different directions and ways of doing it. But yeah, I mean that really it speaks volumes, you know.
yeah,
So and I have so honorable mentions, like I said, pretty much the whole album, but I love Angry Chair and Down in a Hole because of the duet, like the Jerry and Lane singing together. You know, like that
yeah.
is I got to see Alice in Chains maybe like, I don't know, let's just say 4 years ago, maybe. I think it was before the pandemic, and
Hmm.
that was my first time seeing Jerry Cantrell perform live, and like seeing his stage presence is so special. And then imagining him and Lane together would be such a, I mean, it just fits so perfectly, you know. And they complement, their harmonies are so sweet, and Down in a Hole and Angry Chair, I think, are really beautiful examples of that. Um, yeah, let's see. Did you catch? I'll mention this before we go into bottoms. Is did you catch the? You saw the bass player's guitar and what it said.
What does it
So
say?
it says, "Friends don't let friends get haircuts." All right, and it's interesting because digging deeper into that, turns out Metallica was in the audience at that show, and
Oh
Metallica and
shit!
Alice in Chains have a little bit of a history where there was a time where Metallica was touring and Lane was, I think, just not doing well, and they had to stop. They had to like come out of the tour, and I think that rubbed Metallica the wrong way, and there was some beef or whatever. And then this show, Metallica like came out and to support Alice in Chains, so they were at the show, and I think they had all just gotten their haircuts, all of Metallica, and so he wrote that in reference to Metallica, right?
That's fucking funny.
But you know what it made me think of was when so like funny note to the listeners and viewers, Christian and so right now I have long hair, Christian has short hair. He and I throughout our whole life have never had long hair at the same time, because believe it or not, this dude had a mane that maybe will make an appearance in the future, but some beautiful hair. But we never had long hair at the same time.
It
But
was we switched off. We planned it every single time. Like right
right.
when you're starting to grow yours out, I chop mine off, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been a while since I've even considered. But I might have to bring it back, and then when mine gets there, you'll have to chop yours, I
Is
guess.
that right? Well, you know, I mean, like in honor of friends don't let friends get haircuts. You know, I gotta apologize to you, Christian, because there was a day where when we were when I was pledging the fraternity, trying to get Christian to join us. We showed up at the gym. You remember? I'm sure you remember
Oh,
this.
oh,
How
I
many?
remember.
Why don't you tell your perspective of that situation?
It was so we had done our first lineup or whatever, and it was this little like you're not gonna have fucking long hair. It was pretty much
Right.
they're saying, hey, you're about to go through, kind of getting told what to fucking do for about a
Yeah.
year, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna be able to have long hair because I had just started growing, really just started growing my out. It was probably just getting to where my neck was, like where it stayed back and didn't look completely ridiculous.
Right.
And I was like, well, fuck you. I pulled a Lane Staley. I was like, well, go fuck yourself then.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm out of here. So I'm up at the gym, and Anthony, along with like, I don't know, probably 40
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean, yeah,
Pledge Brothers of
probably.
Lambda Chi, Alabama, show up at the gym all in polos and fucking khakis, looking like a goddamn
This goon
karaoke
squad.
team. Yeah, I was like, I didn't know if they were about to break out and sing song or something,
All
but
right, High
they
School
were like, let's
Musical.
go. We're going. We're going to, you're coming
You
with.
cut
We're
your
going to cut
hair.
your hair. Yeah. And I was like, get fucked. I was
Yeah,
like, they were like, we know where you live. I was like, well, then I'll see you there,
yeah.
motherfucker.
Meanwhile, you live with
And
me, so it was like
I
not a
live, yeah, and I
secret.
live within the dorm with Anthony. And to at the end, I kept it and was
Yeah,
not in the fraternity,
no.
but I had a gorgeous head of hair, and I don't know how long I kept it for, probably a couple years, but
Well, till mine was grown out completely
Mhm.
because mine was shaved at the time. But
Exactly.
the end of that story is do what the fuck you want to do because shit, you got to go to everything. It didn't change anything,
Yeah, no,
saved you some money
but
probably.
but Anthony's over here bringing up friends don't let friends get haircuts. He tried to cut my hair one time.
Exactly. So as I said, that's what this is my apology to you. And shit, I have only cut my hair once since then, and that was just to donate it. So all right, so let's pivot now. You got any bottom tracks?
I got to tell you, this is probably the first time it's happened that I don't have a single. I really did try to. I tried to find like aspects of stuff that I might not like, and there were some where I wasn't like completely, but there were other parts that was like, no, you can't fucking put this on there. I was just
Right.
like, so first for me, there's not a fucking bottom track on this, and if it says anything and you're listening to this, you need to go listen to this fucking album all the way through.
Right. Yeah. You know what, man? I did the exact same thing. I mean,
Fuck
like
yeah.
I tried because I was like, we can't even say we're pulling a Trey because Blake did it. So we can say we're trying to pull a Blake. And no, it's what it is. I mean, I can't find anything wrong with any of these tracks. Even Lane fucks up on Sludge Factory. And
Yeah, no.
like they
But it
restart the
makes it
track.
better. It makes
I
it so much
totally
better that he
agree.
did. I'm like, that's what meant.
It's
I was
real.
like, I can't put this in because this is exactly what I crave from like live artistry.
When you just hear Lane say "fuck,"
Fuck,
it's like, hey, I get it.
run it
So
back.
no, man, no bottom tracks for me. I just, you got to respect the tracks. I mean, it's just, it would do them so wrong to say that they're anywhere associated near the bottom.
Yeah, no,
So,
no
um,
chance,
all right. What you got? What do you want to give it?
dude. Oh,
Or do you
do
want
we
to
want
talk
to
about
talk
it?
about like his just struggle like with addiction and that kind of stuff? It's just so it's just so frustrating for me. Like especially with artists around this era, like you look at Blind Melon, you look at this with Alice in Chains, and it's always sad. Don't get me. I'm not trying to diminish it from any other artist, but when I look at like Lane or Shannon from
Yeah.
Blind Melon, those two really stick out to me as far as vocal artists who, no matter how I've tried to find people, like it's just they are who they are. There's not another like them, nor will there be, and it's just I think when you see an artist struggle like that, it's so hard. It sucks so bad that we lost, Lane at that age and other artists like that. It's
Yeah.
just like fucking hell. Could you imagine what they would have put out? But then again, the other side of it is, would his music have been as impactful if he wasn't going through that struggle? Would he have written? Would he have sung the way he sung? Would the music be the
Yeah.
way it was? I don't know.
I think that's the interesting point to make, which is where what influences what, because I mean, you go down the list of artists. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, Biggie and Tupac, Jerry Garcia, I
Yeah.
mean, Kurt, Chester Bennington, Chris Cornell, Andy Wood, Lane. I mean, these are all people who were lost way before they should have been. But where Elvis is another one, even though he was way out of his, range, but like at that time, it's like, these are massive enigmas, right? So like, what's the breaking point? Is it drugs? Is it pop culture? Is it the media? Think about the media now. And then you have a, 50-year-old Kurt Cobain still performing. How does that look? Right. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Do people get
I,
sick of it?
I
Are they
mean, think
just,
of it
right?
then.
Yeah,
You see
exactly.
little instances where bands like Alice in Chains or with Kurt with Nirvana interacted with the media, and it was very much like fuck you, like what the fuck
Right.
is, why are we having to do this? A lot of their struggle I felt like was having to deal with more just the media and all the
Exactly.
bullshit questions that come with it, the like analysis of their personal lives and shit like that. And it's just like, I think that's probably the biggest thing that was for the downfall of some of these artists.
Yeah. It's like success brings up so many opportunities, but also so much extra baggage. It's like, where, from an artist standpoint, what, like you think about what is the motivation to do things like this, right? To perform or to create art. A lot of people, financial gain, some people it's personal gain, and some it's just kind of, you just can't help but put things out there. And I think that that being more of their motivation, it's never been a financial thing. It's never been a popularity thing. I mean, in fact, that the whole, quote, grunge movement is like anti pop culture, but it became this vicious cycle. It's like, good shit is undeniable. And when it
Yeah.
starts to have outreach like they started to get in the 90s, where people are tuning in to MTV or getting radio play, and it's like, yeah, it's undeniable music. And then, of course, the demand goes up, and then you have managers involved. You have other things that aren't being seen that are like kind of trying to push the machine in a direction that also benefits them. And it's just ugly. And
Yeah, I think especially for artists like this and of this
right.
era, that was something difficult to deal with because they were people who wanted to just put it out because it was something that they innately had to do. It was their expression of
Exactly.
life. And when all that gets involved, especially on the grunge side of things, because it was always like a fuck you to that side of the business. But it's this double edge where you kind of you have to deal with it, and I think those are the people who just dealt with it the worst way.
Yeah. And I mean, it is so unfortunate, but it does. I mean, you can't help but wonder, yeah, what would it be like nowadays, right? Or even just like
Yeah.
10 years ago, right? But also, like I said, times change and more shit comes around. Cause I mean, we have artists now dying. I mean, Charles the First, I mean, like you have artists now dying prematurely,
Matt.
and it's like, yeah, Mac Miller, exactly. I mean, it is just like, anything can happen. It's just so tragic, but also that's what I think is so special just about the idea of recording things, right? I mean, these things
Mm-hmm.
become time capsules, and they speak to generations to come. So like, he could never know it, right? Kurt could never know it. Jimi
Yeah,
Hendrix could never know it, but like, these guys are timeless, right? Timeless
exactly.
figures. And I guess, I mean, positive sides of this could be spun in a way to say there's not going to be any new controversy coming out around these guys. I mean, they're not going to dig up any skeletons because these guys were transparent with the shit they were going through. I think
Yeah,
that's the difference nowadays, is that we might not have as many artists willing to open up themselves as much as they did, but when you open yourself as much as somebody like Lane and Kurt does, it leaves opportunity for failure, or for downfalls, and that's just the
exactly.
hard truth of it.
Yep.
So, all
But
right,
yeah,
bring it back up. Bring it back
for
up.
rating, this is the first for me. I think I don't know if I've ever given anything a 10, but this album from start to finish is fucking raw and emotional. It holds the nostalgia factor. I think it's absolutely it's what I crave from art is just the raw nature of it, and everything about this is just raw and in your face and beautiful and dark and light. It's just it hits everything for me. 10, gorgeous album.
Oh yeah, I can't help but agree, man. I mean, it's like
Blake's
from
gonna hate us.
yeah, he is. But I mean, if he's taking notes at home and doesn't have a 10, he needs to check himself into rehab potentially, because
Agreed.
because I mean, it's undeniable. That's the thing. I mean, if someone has negative thoughts about this album, please send us like feedback, because I'm not seeing what you're seeing. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like I said, for all the things we've already mentioned and the things that we're not even able to mention, this album is something I would love to find someone who obviously had never heard of Alice in Chains, or just like play it for somebody who has no idea what they're about to listen to, and just get their perception,
Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, this is Alice in Chains. This is Alice in Chains doing an acoustic set live, right? So it's just like I said, it hits all the boxes and more. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh yeah.
All
So
right,
that's Unplugged, Alice in Chains. If you
Unplugged,
hadn't heard
Alice
it,
in
go
Chains.
fucking listen.
Yep, tune in. All right, so shall we do rides or dies next?
Oh
You wanna do rides
shit!
or
I
dies?
forgot what I sent you.
I know what you sent me.
Which
So
was it?
I think it's called Chamber of Reflections, something ODNP.
Oh yeah.
Sound
So
familiar?
it was man, this is so we just kind of talked about where music is now, and this is just so interesting to me because so I found this from an Instagram reel,
Mm.
and the original song is by Mac DeMarco that these two girls that are in this video cover, and they do this beautiful ethereal kind of just guitar and vocals, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. These other two producers, just guys that fuck around with kind of like house music, find that and then kind of create this little house version of it, and it was just had this ethereal nice little upbeat kind of vibe to it, and I was like, this is very nice. I've been
Yeah,
obsessed
right.
with it, and I don't know why.
Yeah. So yeah, I felt that vibe, you know. I wrote words like sweet and soft and good vibe, and like that if you call this house music, this is my ideal house music, right? I mean, it's like it's
Yeah.
not overwhelming, it's not droning, it's very like catchy, I guess is one way to put it, but it's like you can't not vibe with it.
Exactly.
So this one rides for me.
Fuck yeah.
So, all right. The song that I picked, it came from a movie I just watched. There's a movie on Hulu called The Royal Hotel. It's about these two girls that go like backpacking in Australia, and they end up uh, staying in this town to kind of work off and just kind of have an experience, and shit gets weird. But the opening of the movie is this track. So it's a remix of Down Under by Men at Work. It's by a producer called Lude, I guess is the way to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Heavy drum and bass, dude. But like the intro was so haunting because it's literally the first thing you hear in the movie is the kind of you know, and
I can imagine this like now that you're
was
like
in a
describing
club.
it in the way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Dark lit.
It's just fucking. And I have a playlist that I added that song to immediately. It's called Morning Sex Drum and Bass. And
There you go.
it's just
Yeah.
fucking vibey.
Mhm.
But now that you're describing how you came across it, I'm like picturing how fucking wild that is. It almost reminds me of that, like how I thought about the club scene, that first club scene from The Matrix.
Yeah.
When it's Minefields by The Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, but I've been on a weird drum and bass kick. I don't know what's been going on. So this fucking rides.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I encourage any listeners too, and Christian, you too. I mean, you just start that movie, like I said, you get 30 seconds into it and it's already setting the tone.
Yeah.
Definitely worth watching in full, but if you just need to catch just a little context of that song, I was like, fuck yeah, this song kills. And I would love, if I had the production wherewithal to remix this version of it, to do a drum and bass to halftime, to that haunting kind of intro again. It crushed. So
fuck yes.
All right, double rides, 10 out of 10, no bottom tracks. Blake is not gonna like this.
He is not, Lord.
So he'll be back maybe sometime soon. But before he comes back, let's talk No Country for Old Men. How about it?
Yeah.
What you got?
So that was my pick, and there's something just about this movie that has stuck with me. I like to watch these script to screens, and you're probably familiar with them, but if our listeners aren't, so it's you can find them on YouTube, and they do all kinds of different movies, but it's pretty much where they select different scenes from movies across the board, all kinds of genres, and below as the scene is playing out, it's kind of like a split screen but top and bottom. So the scene's playing out on top, and the script is scrolling through, and just blew me away. This movie, for those of you that don't know, it's a neo-Western like crime thriller. It's written by the written and directed by the Coen brothers, which, you like them, whatever, you don't, whatever. But this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. It's what's that dude's name? I'm trying to think of the actors. So it's got Tommy Lee Jones, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, which I absolutely fucking love. But there's something about this that's just has stuck with me for a long time because of the lack of a soundtrack, really, or music that plays. I think I looked it up, and I think throughout the whole movie, there's 14 minutes of music, and that's it. And just the villain that Javier Bardem plays, Anton Chigurh. I think I'm getting that. Maybe I hope I'm getting that right.
You're talking about the character
Chigurh. Chigurh. Yeah, Anton though, and his little silenced. I don't know what that weapon is, but you talk about like weapons that you'd want to have maybe in an apocalypse. The cattle prod, shooting the door handles out.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, this is fucking. He plays just a great villain in it. And there's so many lines from him in that movie, but the scene from the gas station where it's just the old man, he kind of comes across. He just flips the coin, and then the dude wants to put it in his pocket. He's like, don't put that in their pocket. He's like, loses its value. It's traveled all this way, and it made it here to you. That's your lucky coin. And I'm like,
dude, what the fuck? That just saved your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you got any thoughts on No Country for Old Men?
I mean, like that, just on the weapon, right? I mean, that weapon is the perfect amount of, it gives you the perfect amount of time for someone to go, what the fuck? And you're done.
Yeah.
Just any moment.
The sound too. The sound it makes. Yeah. I was like, powerful. Oh, it's so cool.
Well, there's a good point with like how they, edited this film, which as far as sound design goes, there's everything that you hear is, amplified as to what is actually happening. Like the gunfights are wild. Like you said, the actual execution with the weapon is wild. I mean, it's like just you're hearing everything that's meant to be heard in real time. But like I find it interesting that in this film, obviously the choices that they make to because it's basically opens with a drug deal that's gone bad, and then the chase of the money, follow the money, but that you don't see anything with the drug deal, right? There are certain deaths that you don't see, but you discover. I just find that really interesting. And the first time I ever saw this movie, Christian, you know of this place, the Shack. Remember the Shack?
Oh, I remember the Shack.
For the listeners out there, the Shack was a basement of a friend's house where we could just do whatever we wanted, pretty much. And
everybody had that. I don't care. Like everybody, like all through all my travels, I've talked to people and somehow kind of come up on something like that. Everybody, I don't care who you are, had that. Like one friend who their parents were like kind of not there, kind of didn't give a shit, and they had that spot, and it was like you could do whatever. This was our Shack.
Oh yeah, exactly. So the first time I ever saw this movie, the only other time I've ever seen this movie was in the Shack. So 2007, we're 16, 17 years old, right? Trying to understand this movie was not easy. Like I remember getting so confused seeing Tommy Lee Jones and then Josh Brolin, because in my mind at that time they kind of looked alike. And when you see Josh Brolin's character laying on the ground, I was so confused. I'm like, is that Tom? Like, what the? I could not understand for the life of me what the fuck just happened in the movie. So I was so glad that when you brought this back up to the podcast, I was like, all right, finally, I'm intentionally going to go back into this world and figure out what the fuck I couldn't understand beforehand, because just it wasn't the right setting for me to take in this movie in the Shack. But but it was fun, no doubt. But I loved the tension that's built with the coin flip, right? I love just the opening scene is something that I hadn't obviously seen in forever, where he starts off in handcuffs and then just gets out, strangles the guy, and then now he's gone. It's like, damn, this guy is a fucking force to be reckoned with, no doubt.
And who else is in it? It's Woody Harrelson, right? Yeah, that is tracking him down. There's a scene with him where Anton finally catches up to him, kind of, or
Yeah.
they kind of cross paths, and he has this line because Anton is this kind of almost like genius level hitman,
Yeah.
where he has these kinds of sets of rules for himself that
Hmm.
allow him to do what he's able to do and kind of not be emotionally attached. But there's a scene with him and Woody Harrelson there at the end when he's about to kill him, and he's like, if you had this rule in place of what good to you was the rule, if it led you here to me anyways,
Hmm.
and he fucking kills him.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like, it's so wild to say that a killer has like super strict morals and principles, but that's
Yeah.
what he does, right? Not to say that he's a good person, but
In a way, it reminded me of the character from what's it? Is it Finch's last one, The Killer,
the
with
killer, yeah, yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Fassbender? It's almost that same kind of like regimented hitman,
yeah.
which
How
which I thought was super cool.
how crazy would it be to see a version of this movie with inner monologue of
Oh shit,
Javier Bardem's character? That would be
that
crazy to hear what this guy is thinking, versus what
yeah,
just the actions are happening. Because he doesn't fuck around. I mean, at the end where he gets fucking hit by a car accident, right? And then he's already like, all right, I got to do this and then get the fuck out of Dodge. So
yeah,
wild,
and
wild.
just the cast like names too. It's just set in Texas, right? And it's just
Mhm.
this, you know, Llewellyn Moss, Carla Jean is Llewellyn's
Mm.
wife, and it's just all these names. I just read too. So Josh Brolin's role, Llewellyn Moss, was originally offered to Heath Ledger, and he turned it down. And
Wow.
I couldn't picture him in that now
Mm-mm.
after seeing Josh Brolin take that role on.
No, I think it's a perfect casting. I
Yeah,
think even Josh Brolin grew up in Texas or maybe had some sort of experience in Texas. I know Tommy Lee Jones has that drawl that is just intoxicating. Just the way he talks, right?
yeah, which is funny too now with Josh Brolin and with Javier Bardem because they just paired up with Dune 2 or with
Hmm.
Dune 1 and 2. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I thought that was super crazy.
Hmm. Funny note on this movie, and well, first off, this movie won four Oscars. It won Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Directing, and then Javier Bardem won Best Supporting Actor for this film. So four awards that they won. Now, something that the Coen brothers do that's kind of, I guess, like an inside joke. Some of their movies, they have what I guess you could call it a ghost editor because they edit
Hmm.
their movies, but
Oh,
they were very conscious of their names being on the screen too much. Directed by the Coen brothers, written by the Coen brothers, edited by the Coen brothers. So instead of having themselves listed as the editor, they created this figure. His name is Roderick Jaynes, Jaynes, and he's been nominated for a few Oscars. And I don't think he's actually won anything, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's just like an interesting little tidbit on just the way that they do things. Because I think a lot of the things they did in this movie were kind of like inside jokes amongst themselves. Like I said, not showing certain deaths or even the drug deal gone wrong could have been like, if you imagine what that shootout must have been like, because there's like maybe one survivor in this situation that you don't even get to see happen on screen.
yeah.
That's just such a ballsy move by them to just say, this is what happened. You play it again in your mind, and we're not going to show you shit.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see. Any other points you wanted to make on this? I had let's see. I had Llewellyn at first, he tried to do the right thing and then, shit comes back around,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, there's
Just
no
can't.
escaping it.
Once you're in that tar pit, yeah, there's no just easily climbing out. It's uphill from then
It was
on.
just such a cool, like the tension building with Llewellyn and with Anton, because you think Anton's kind of met his match. Like Llewellyn's going to be the one who comes out of this. Not, I guess I'm giving away some spoilers here, but who cares?
Yeah, I think we should just always preface it. From here
Yeah,
on out,
yeah.
if we're gonna talk it, we've already seen it, so we're gonna spoil it for you.
So, yeah, you just kind of like think that he's going to be the one who outsmarts this guy who's this hitman with all these kind of rules, this kind of rough around the edges country boy, who stumbles across this whole scene pretty much, but it ends up going very much the other way for him.
Right. Something that I thought about after the fact, because I was watching just some I was trying to find some behind the scenes stuff on this, and the movie opens with the scene with Anton in jail, and he gets out, and then it cuts to Llewellyn, who's out hunting, right, hunting deer, I think, and he's like he's got a deer in his sights, right, and that I think is such a foreshadowing thing to what's to come with Llewellyn becoming the hunted because of the money trail,
Oh, I like that.
So it's like it's a foreshadowing kind of thing to say he had a deer in his sights, and then now the roles are reversed once he grabs the money, and like you better get out of this, try to get out of this clean, or you got some people on your trail. I mean, the tractors. There's so many. Yeah, there's so many different angles I guess you could look at, but. Like the hotel scenes are interesting, where it's like you got people, hiding shit in the air ducts and scoping out the perimeter, following trackers and shit. Very interesting movie, man. I mean,
good one.
I can see
it's
why
a classic.
I see why it is a classic. Let's see. Anything else you want to mention before we shift gears again? All right, so. No Country for Old Men, 2008 Best Picture, wrapping it up. All right, so did you watch Soft and Quiet?
Yes.
Okay, now before you say anything, let me say something because I should apologize to you and to the listeners and viewers by not prefacing this movie. I'm real self-conscious with influencing people's experiences for things because of the way I understand that sometimes I will take things in that's not maybe the common way to take something in. So I should have prefaced this, I believe. Maybe you should tell me if I should have or shouldn't have, because this movie is not an easy watch. But this was your first time seeing it, I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So I'll let you go ahead and I want to hear about your experience, and then we'll go.
Well, do you want to intro it first? So give everybody a heads up on like what it's about.
So this movie, it's a continuous shot film. It's pretty recent. Came out last year. I believe it came out last year. Maybe I should look that up. Let's see.
Release date 2022.
Mm-hmm. So a couple years ago. Like I said, continuous shot film. It is centered around this white supremacist kind of collective of females. But things become uncovered as the film progresses. So if No Country, Old Men was a movie about a drug deal gone wrong, this is about a group of crazy bitches trying to act on their impulses of hatred and prejudice, and shit keeps going wrong. So it's about 90 minutes of a banger of a movie that keeps just spiraling out of control. But I was right.
That's what was crazy. The continuous shot, like, I mean, especially from watching the stuff that I've recently watched, is just like 2-3 hour movies and all this shit. And I'm like, holy fuck, this is just like, it was like what could go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah, and worse, right?
And worse.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like my review, the first sentence I wrote was "buckle up." I mean, because like this thing gets ugly and it keeps getting uglier and uglier, right? But so yeah, what else did you what feelings did you get with watching this?
A little anxiousness because it was just like it seemed to just tumble. It was like watching dominoes fall, and you're like, okay, you're kind of happy that it's happening, but also it's like it is just fucking the shit that starts to go on. You're like, holy fuck! I think it was the allergic reaction with the EpiPen and stuff like that. I don't know why in my head that is something that just scares me. It's been this in my head, like horrible, like dark twisted thing that I picture happening, like knocking teeth out or something's one of those. Right. But like having someone like losing it and needing an EpiPen and like you're not finding it and it's
a helpless feeling.
That shit shook me the fuck up. But it was this because it's around this group that you're kind of like, fuck them,
Right, exactly.
It's just kind of this entertainment value of let's watch this unfold to some shitty people, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's this movie, I think the purpose of it is to highlight just how fucked up some people can be, even with this, white female complexion, right? I mean, like, you
Yeah.
just can't, evil has no gender, evil has no race, it doesn't have any characteristics. I mean, it's rampant, it can be everywhere. And I think highlighting this puts you right in the front row seat of seeing it unfold. And yeah, some of those decisions that these people make, it's like you can't in your wildest dreams imagine watching somebody going into anaphylactic shock and holding an EpiPen and saying, it's too late. No.
Yeah.
How fucked is that,
Trust me, I was just like, what the fuck is going on? But
Yeah.
and it's just the link, like how quickly it all happens that you're like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
going on?
you can't take your eyes off of it,
It
right?
went from like where you're sitting back and you're kind of watching to like you slowly notice that you're like
Yes.
sitting on the edge of your seat at the end. And you're like, it's
Right?
done, and you're like, what the fuck did I just witness?
Yeah, and I think it gives you this kind of claustrophobic feeling, right? And so this was the second time that I watched it, and so I hadn't watched it in about a year, and knowing what I knew was going to happen, it still gives you that same feeling, but like there are things that become revealed, like the so we'll spoil it, the swastika that's on the pie. The beginning of the scene opens up at that school where she's holding the pie and she shows the kid. She's like, "Look, doesn't this look delicious?" And the kid's like, "Yeah." And then later, when you see what the pie is with the swastika and they're cutting into it, how like cutting into a pie does not seem like grotesque or gory at all until you watch it like this, right?
Yeah, it definitely had a way of taking these like things that like in regular life you wouldn't, even think of it in that type of context, and
Right.
found a way to make it ugly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's even just the dialogue that's being said. I mean, the movie's called Soft and Quiet, but there's nothing soft and quiet about this at all. And I think that that's the angle to take. But like when you hear them, like the talking about the white supremacists, the fucked up people, when they start like doubting themselves or like
Mm-hmm.
thinking, okay, maybe this is wrong, another person takes that role of like, no, this is our mission, this is what we got to do, and they start saying things like, do you understand, like that tactic of talking to people, you hear that from authoritarian figures in your life,
Constantly,
right?
all the
Whether
time.
it's a principal or a coach or just another figure who's just trying to control somebody, they'll just use this tactic of like, you got to listen to me. This is what we're doing. Don't, no questions asked. You just fucking do it. And like, obviously that's not a way to communicate with a human, but you can
No,
just see how
but
manipulative that is.
yeah, the scary is like in those group settings, because when one person does kind of get up and take that charge and take that kind of role and flip it back on the other people, it's scary how quickly it minimizes everybody else, not
Right.
just a singular person, but it's like the
Exactly.
group falls in line very quickly, and it's like that's a scary part of human nature to me.
And that's why I think this movie is so important. It's to highlight that how quickly mob mentality takes over, or how quickly you can, yes, exactly like you said, undermine a whole collective by singling out of one person, and then
Yeah.
everyone goes internally, "Oh shit! Well, I'm not. That's not gonna happen to me." Or I'm not going to be the one that fucks it up for everyone else, or whatever kind of twisted logic goes through people's minds. But um, I think that's why I wanted to to put this movie in front of people to say, look at how ugly society can be, because we've met these people, whether
Oh
we
yeah.
know what's going on behind closed doors or not, like it's there. And like to see it play out in front of your eyes is hard to watch, like I said, but when you get through it, I think it's worthwhile, because now you have this perspective of like, wow, it can be anywhere.
Yep. Agreed. No,
Mm-hmm.
and this was absolutely amazing. I love stuff that's done like this. I mean, the cast was probably what, like 15 people or
If
something. I
that,
don't
yeah,
know.
if
Yeah,
that.
if that. It done in 92 minutes. And for somebody to put together a movie like this that still has that much of an impact, where at the end of the movie of 90 minutes, which in movie time nowadays is just nothing, you're at the
Right.
edge of your fucking seat and you're like, what
Mhm.
the fuck is going on?
Yeah. And it's still like we will save, let's not say what happens like the last seconds of the movie, but
Yeah.
it's worth it, like fucking stick around through this because it will pay off in a way that you may not expect, but it is definitely special. And this director, her name is Beth. I'll do my best. Beth de Arajo. This is her first film. So like to come out of the gates with this, in my mind, I'm like, I am on board with whatever you want to do from here
Yep.
on out, and like it being a continuous shot, so 90 minutes, but the film starts in the morning and ends at midnight, ends at the middle of the night. So like you have light changes that are happening. It's an illusion, it's just so well done. The score is beautiful. Cinematography is beautiful, but Beth, this director, she is just punching you and punching you
Yeah.
and punching you. But I think that makes for a wild experience of a movie. It may be divisive for sure, but still, it's
Yeah, it's supposed to be, but
fulfilling.
yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just it was a great watch.
Yeah,
Good pick.
hell yeah. That do you, now. Okay, now to my original thought. Is this a movie that should be prefaced to somebody, or you just say you need to watch this?
I think it depends on
Yeah,
who's
right.
watching it. To people like you and I, who, as far as what we're open to sitting down and going through, it is
Yeah,
pretty much anything.
right.
And so it's like, it's almost better for you to not to just say, hey, buckle up, like hold the fuck
Yeah,
on, because that's
yeah,
what it was. For
right.
some, you might want to buckle up and maybe preface this a little bit by what we're saying here,
Just
and then
like,
dive in if you want to.
yeah, right. Gotcha. Fuck yeah. So that makes me feel better. I was definitely like, damn. I was like, man, did I just? Well, Blake is the one that like. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know his thought, if he made it through or if he shut it off or if he was watching it like with the girl saying, "All right, Anthony recommended this movie." Now I will in the future I will semi preface things, or I may give you a context of how to watch it, or what setting would be most ideal, because I think that does definitely make a difference. If you watch this on a date night, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but
Interesting
if
date
you
night.
watch it on
Yeah.
your own, yeah, you watch it on your own, knowing that it's going to be crazy as fuck. I guess that's one way to put it. I think it definitely makes for a better experience, but hell yeah.
Agreed.
I'm glad you dug it. So,
Fuck
all
yeah.
right. So soft and quiet, not so soft and not so quiet at
No,
all.
neither of those
So,
things.
all right. So that wraps up fucking totally biased music for this week. Christian, any other thoughts before we say what's next week is the 50th episode? Did you know that?
Is it? It is. Well,
Finally.
just from doing the Instagram post, I was like, I think we're close. I think we're
Yeah.
close.
So here we are. So any thoughts before we say what's going to be on next week's episode?
No, that was a fun ride. I enjoyed it. What
Hell
we got
yeah.
next week?
All right. So movie wise, Blake has picked the movie. It is going to be Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, hell yeah.
Let me see where you can watch this movie. It looks like it's on Netflix. Netflix or Amazon Prime, but likely on Netflix for all you folks out there. I'm excited to watch that. And then the album for the 50th episode. I've been waiting to do it and finally going to drop it on you. It's not Buckethead, but it is Dredge. Dredge, the album is called El Cielo. Elcielo. It is a concept album. Let me say this. So this album should be listened to in full. So it might be a little bit over an hour, but that's how I would encourage you to take in this album. It's a concept album. Like I said, let's see how long we got. Runtime.
And for those listening, Dredge is spelled Dredg.
Correct. Yeah. So 57 minutes of an album. So ideal sit time. Listen to it however you want to, but like I said, try to get it in all in one swipe and enjoy the ride. So, all right, brother. Love you, man.
That was fun. Love you,
Do
brother.
it
I'll talk to
again
you
soon. All right. See
Yes,
you, brother.
sir.
Peace.
Peace.